Horror isn't about safety. It's about what happens when safety fails. What's more terrifying than a monster? One that wins. This monster doesn't get vanquished. It thrives. It feasts. It wins. Because sometimes the real terror isn't realizing there's no final girl, no redemption, and no escape. Hey there, aspiring horror authors. It's another episode of Sako and the Moon by two self-published horror authors walking the path of horror craft and marketing. I myself am dark artist and designer Sako Toomey, but I also write horror under the name Cass Foyt. I do a bunch of other things, but we'll just mention that I'm published 4 times over. That's 3 standalones and an anthology. And I'm working on a couple of books and a serial. I've been working on my craft for decades, and now I'd like to share my skills with you guys. Oh, hold up.
Oh, see, this is what she does. She mutes me, and then she doesn't let me go.
Yeah.
She just leaves me there. Just leaves me hanging.
Yeah, I sure
I'm
do.
the one O'Hearn. When you can hear me, I'm more affectionately known as the Moon. And yeah, I write stuff, I film stuff, and I talk to people.
Yep. And he's super good at it.
I'm all right.
He's super good at it. Okay, so today we are
award nominated again and again.
You are award nominated and also award winning.
I mean, there's a trophy. Yeah.
There's a trophy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's up there.
Yeah. Yeah. You have accomplishments that you should recognize.
I'm waiting until I get the first place one, and then I'll really own it. Oh, if I get first place at any point in time, I ain't gonna be able to shut up about it.
No, I don't suspect you will.
This year I got a lot of competition though.
Yeah, you do. You got Devin and Sabata.
So there's the convention we're always talking about, the Imaginarium convention, and they just released the finalists for screenwriting, and there are 15 total finalists, and go me, I'm 2 of them. I have 2 projects that are both finalists, and I got some stiff competition though. Some great horror writers, like award-winning screenwriters, James Sabata, Devin Hilton, Herschel Zahn.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm in the category with Carol Pre-Flattish. I'm not sure if she's in short form with me, but there's a lot of great screenwriters. So I am, at the very least, I am honored to be amongst greats.
Yeah. Well, you are also great. So
I do all right.
You are among peers.
When I get that first place trophy, I'll really. You
are among peers. So best of luck.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See, I can talk about that. I mean, I might as well, right? Here I am.
Yeah.
They just announced it Wednesday?
Wednesday, yeah. And then for real on Thursday. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I get a trophy as the harbinger of chaos, as I'm known at the convention, that would be a true life example of when the bad guy wins. See what I did there? Wait,
you are good at this. If you consider yourself the bad guy. And you know what? I wouldn't put it past you.
I do.
So we are talking about how to write when the bad guy wins.
When the bad guy wins. I love when the bad guy wins.
Me too. So why do we keep coming back to stories where evil triumphs?
I think it boils down to just a realization alongside our darkest fears. I would like to believe that if something bad was to happen, there we could find a positive resolution at the end of it, right? Um, think a car accident, and you hope that someone would walk away, right? You can walk out of the accident well enough to exchange insurance information and go on about your day, whatever that looks like now. That is not always the case. There is a news story I just shared with Sako maybe 20 minutes ago, where a tractor trailer fell off the highway in Louisville, Kentucky today, and the driver is fine, walks away with minor bruises and scrapes, but there is a very realistic scenario of what would happen if he didn't. You know, and I'm glad everybody's okay, so I'll make sure to put that out there. And something similar happened a year or some odd ago. And again, the driver was fine. So always in the back of our heads, we're always thinking, but what if they weren't? What would you do then? What would happen then? Who would be responsible then if the bad thing happened? So sometimes that happens at the beginning of our stories, and that's what prompts our stories to begin. But there's also space for that to happen at the end, because sometimes you can go through that entire journey and it just doesn't work out for you. That's a real life possibility. And I think that's one of the reasons why it is equally as intriguing to ponder when the bad guy wins. There's some story reasons also. We'll get into that tonight.
I think we like stories where the bad guy wins because they feel honest and unsettling. In real life, justice doesn't always prevail. And these endings reflect the bitter truth. They haunt us, forcing us to think deeper about the story's themes, systems, or inevitability. When the villain wins, the horror lingers. It flips expectations, because we always expect the good things to happen. Highlights how powerless we really are, and sometimes in a twisted way. I mean, I find it cathartic.
In a sense. And, there's this, when you're used to hearing a story growing up, it starts with once upon a time and it ends with happily ever after. And that's not reality. And that's one of the things we grow up. We grow up and we learn that that's great for fairy tales. It's not realistic though. That's not what we are likely to encounter. So when the bad guy wins at the end of a horror story, when things don't actually work out, one, it subverts expectations, which is one of the things that horror is known for. And sometimes that's just the reality. The goal is to create dread, create fear, and nothing is more haunting walking away from a scary novel when you put it down at the very end, or walking out of the theater from a scary movie. Nothing is more lingering and everlasting than if the bad guy won and now you don't have the resolution in your soul on behalf of the characters on the screen. Like when they vanquish the bad guy, they vanquish the monster, or the villain gets put in jail or whatever. There's catharticism. It's over. It feels good. It's a feel good moment. But if I want to leave you with dread, it doesn't end positive. That's when the killer comes back at the end and you find out that the killer's still alive, or the villain just wins the exchange one way or another. And I think that's a really good way to have an everlasting impact on your audience, your target audience.
And that's an episode all in of itself, is
how to send them home,
how to find know how to find your audience,
That's
how,
good too. Yeah.
like, because having a bunch of romance writers when you write horror, probably.
It's fun because we've been there. We have our conventions. You go to conventions, and I go to these spaces, and you're around romance writers and fantasy writers, and here you are looking for new, inventive ways to kill people or make them suffer, kill people
Yep.
or worse.
Or worse. And there is a small cadre of horror writers at Imaginarium that I value very much. We are very much so family.
Smaller this year. It's so much smaller this year.
It is so much smaller this year. They're too integral.
Dawn, we are missing you.
Is Dawn not coming? Oh,
yeah.
Man.
I know.
Okay, so we're missing half of our cadre.
We're going to be there. Tommy B. Smith is going to be there. I think
Nicole Smith is going to be there for Saturday.
And we have Bridget Brave. She's going to be there.
She's intimidating.
She's a sweetheart.
She is.
I haven't had the chance to sit.
But I love her work. So I'm kind of like
fangirl,
a little starstruck whenever I'm around her.
She does she has an aura around her, but
she has an aura. Yeah.
She's usually with her husband. She's really really cool. Like I was around her kind of by proxy because she's really close with James and Scott, and I'm close with James and Scott. So I was there and she was there too. And
so you have more exposure to her than I do,
but I nothing direct. There was very little direct conversation between me and Bridget. But from being in that space with her, she's a sweetheart.
Cool. Okay. Anyway, speaking of horror cadre, we are talking about when the bad guy wins. So, why this trope works. So, for one, as we've stated, it reflects real world dread, injustice, powerlessness, fate. For two, it amplifies horror's emotional impact. Like you said, it makes the fear linger even after you've left the theater. And it creates memorable, haunting endings that stick with audience. It says. So
all of them. More than one.
Yeah. The audience says.
You can say the audience, and then you can say with audiences. Both of them work, depending on the article.
Okay. What have you to say about why this trope works? Have we beaten the dead horse, or do you have a couple of notes?
Very few notes on this particular part, but some reference points. It works because it's honest. It works because people can relate to it. And as you and I have talked about before, that is the most important part of storytelling, let alone horror storytelling. If I have to, I say this all the time, and this is no shot to fantasy writers, but one of the things that takes me out of fantasy is how much time is taken in world building. It's just it's necessary for some. Some people love to explore that part. I'm not one.
I do.
I am not your target audience. But that's one of the things that takes me out. The more familiar a world is, the less work you have to put in towards building it. Now, this might come across to some writers as, and this is when we go into the writing advice, to some writers that might come across like that's lazy. It's not. The quicker you can get someone into your story, the sooner you can grab them. A lot of people, we were talking to Nicole Ford Thomas sometime off stream, of course, a friend of ours, and she beats home the idea of how important that first sentence is in your story. And so that I'll say first sentence, first page, first chapter. If you can grab them in your first chapter, if you can snag their attention and get them invested in that first chapter, then you got them.
Yeah.
And they're going to stick around through at least the next checkpoint, the next point of grabbing them in the midst of your story, because you should be doing it more than once. People don't just waste it at the beginning. Keep them engaged. Let things happen throughout the course of the story.
Yeah.
But I think this works because we have either experienced it, God forbid, or we have thought about it. When we went through a scenario and things did work out, part of us thought worst case scenario, what do we do if it doesn't? You know? So I think it's relatable to so many people. And there's something about being able to walk away and tell a story like, oh man, that's crazy. Can you believe that this happened, X, Y, Z? And I think I'll leave the other thing about this for world building and character building is a lot of times if you don't have a strong villain, your hero means nothing.
Yep.
You need to have a strong villain. And sometimes that means at least an
antagonist. I would, because no one thinks they're, well, I think I'm a villain, but
so do I.
But in situations like that, no one thinks they're the bad guy.
Right. So I use term bad guy, villain, antagonist kind of interchangeably, but you're right that I should be making a more clear distinction. Your antagonist, if you're going to have a very strong antagonist to validate the strength and power of your protagonist, sometimes that to show that they have to win, they have to succeed. Maybe it's in the part where they set up the big bad event, the climactic event, and that actually happens. And somehow you're showing how your protagonist perseveres through that, which is fine. But the bad guy still won. And there are some movies where just to show how dark and deprived some villains truly are, the bad guy needs to win. And sometimes that's the best way to show that. You can go back to comic books that even though, Doomsday versus Superman, as classic as that is, he died, but Doomsday won. His goal was to beat Superman. He killed Superman. And Doomsday always comes across as that villain because he killed Superman. There are some movies where the bad guy won. That I love, we've talked about in The Grudge. No matter what you do, you don't beat the curse. The curse will still exist when the movie ends.
Yeah.
So that just shows how powerful the curse truly is. If it can be erased with sage and a prayer, then how bad was the spirit in the first place? The Ring, Samara, she's everlasting. Like no matter what they did, they gave peace to her body, and yet she still lived. She still haunts. That's how dangerous that curse is. Yep. And then I'll save this one for the end. But there's another movie that I'm going to mention, and its ending and how the bad guy wins has stuck with me. And I'll tell you the story of how deeply that impacted us after we left that theater. I'll save it at the end.
Okay. Then let's move on to segment 2. 4 ways to use when the bad guy wins. First off, make the loss personal. Character-centered defeat is more powerful than just blood and gore and things. A good example would be the movie The Witch. Thomasin loses everything, including her faith. So her conflict was very yeah, there was external conflict, but there was also internal conflict.
There was. Yeah.
So that was the case where the internal conflict was winning. Do you have anything to say regarding making the loss personal?
It's a kind of a classical story trope, and it's classic because it works.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you want to avoid things that are tropey, but at the same time, they're tropey because they're used often, and they're used often because they work.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, the most honest part of wrestling uses this trope because everything comes back to wrestling with me. It's a thing.
It's a thing.
But when you have someone like person A versus person B, and they're fighting for a championship, and the villain, the heel, wins the title. Okay, it's no big deal. No one cares. Okay, now the heel is champion. Title changed hands. Jey Uso recently lost the championship to Gunther. Cody Rhodes lost the championship to John Cena. It happens. And yes, John Cena was a heel.
Yes.
But it's one thing to take a title. But when you're looking at rivalries like AEW Swerve Strickland versus Hangman Adam Page, sure, having a fight and the win-loss was bad, but it got really deep. You hear the screaming? Yeah, that's my kid. She likes to yell.
That just sets the tone.
It does. I promise she's alive. She's actually having a great time.
Okay.
But with Swerve and Hangman, which is a fantastic rivalry in AEW, it became super personal when Swerve Strickland broke into Hangman's house overnight and was cutting a promo in his brand new child's bedroom, hanging over his child sleeping in bed. That's when it's personal. That's when you violate the sanctity of someone's home, you know. To counter that, Swerve Strickland told the story about how he was finally able to buy his childhood home back, right? And because they lost it in some financial stuff growing up, and he finally found his childhood home and was able to buy it back, and now it's back in the family. So what did Hangman do? He burned the house down. He set up a camera, set up a chair, had a little glass of bourbon, and sat there and sipped while Swerve Strickland's childhood home burned to the ground. They made it personal. They took personal elements of their lives, and they made their rivalry that much deeper. Where even now, there's a whole situation where we're surrounding the World Championship where Hangman should be getting support from people like Swerve, and Swerve refuses to help Hangman, and Hangman refuses to accept help from Swerve. This is one of the best stories in AEW right now. And one of the reasons why it's such a good story is because they made it personal. No one cares if Hangman beats Swerve or Swerve beat Hangman for a belt or just happen to win a regular no-stakes match. None of that matters. But when you start breaking into someone's home and you hang over their kid or you burn down their childhood home that they fought really hard to get back, now it's personal. And now I have to beat you. I can accept the loss to the better man, but now I can't allow you to be the better man. My soul, my spirit, my honor, my dignity will not allow it anymore. And I must defeat you. And that is why that trope still works. Because everything comes back to wrestling.
Because everything comes back to wrestling. And I had a point to make after that, but let's move on. So first we make it personal. Second, tie it to the theme. So the villain's win should echo your central fear or question. So Good example, Rosemary's Baby. There was paranoia, there was isolation, and the whole thing about control over women's bodies. And
which is totally a fictional concern.
and so take a central fear as your theme, and then sprinkle in the villain winning.
And it just realizes that fear. It just emphasizes the reason why that's a fear. It justifies and validates that fear, which translates back to the audience, because a lot of times these fear themes are those same fear themes that the audience relates to. And again, that's what we're doing. We're relating to the audience. We're allowing the audience to, we want them involved. We want them engaged. And that's how we do that. We make it close to them.
So tie it to the theme. Third, subvert hope. We're not just doing expectations, but the idea of hope in a horror movie is, the more hope there is, the more likely the hero is going to win. But the point is, like, set up a victory and then pull it away.
Oh, yeah.
So false hope makes for a sharper horror.
Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Using pacing and structure to lull the audience. I thought I had do not disturb on my...
I don't know. But I will say this in the meantime, while you're setting that up. So a lot of times you create your protagonist, and your protagonist is usually a pretty average Joe or Jane. And there's a monster in the move. And you gotta give them something that kind of humanizes them, give them a fault. And if you give them a fault, just makes them real, and that fault will likely later be subverted or taken advantage of somewhere in the midst of your story. It's because of that fault, because of that ego, or because of that fear, like a fear of drowning, right? They have a fear of drowning, so the climactic event happens on an island or underwater or something, or on a boat. And sometimes you can fill the whole story with hope,
and then smash it.
And then that's where you go, like, you take that little fault that we gave our character, and that is where you insert the subversion, and that is where you turn things the other way and allow the antagonist to take advantage of that. Or in some cases, it's a mistake made by the protagonist, their own ego, their own personal fears.
Hubris.
Yeah. And it's because of that. Oh, I can't allow myself to do that. Another wrestling example, much smaller this time. When Cody lost to John Cena, he lost because John Cena was willing to cheat. Cody wasn't. So when Cody had the opportunity to cheat behind the referee's back and retain his title, he didn't do it. It was his own good guy persona that held him back, and he wasn't able to match the villain. He wasn't able to match wits with the villain and match levels. So the villain doesn't care. The antagonist doesn't care. The heel doesn't care. Takes advantage of that weakness, and next thing you know, we have a new world champion. Yeah. So my point is, it's something as simple as that you can use so that the bad guy takes advantage of it. Because we always talk about, the bad guy doesn't follow laws, doesn't follow rules. They are there. They are the bad guy because they break the rules. So if you're going to meet them by following all the rules, it's probably not going to work. If there's someone breaking all the rules that govern your story or govern your land or whatever, and govern your tropes, and all you're doing is following the rules to defeat them, you're probably not going to succeed.
Regarding
your story and taking
regarding
out your antagonist.
story.
So if you're going to take out your antagonist, if you're going to defeat the bad guy, you have to be able to go meet on the bad guy's level. And a lot of our good guys, in order to keep them good guys, won't do that. So because they won't do that, because they won't go that extra mile above and beyond their little structure, or they can't get past their own hubris, the bad guy wins.
So you mentioned that the hero should rise to the challenge that the antagonist,
exactly.
Maybe it'll be an even fight.
Well, it's usually
or more so, right?
Right, because normally, in order to make a strong protagonist, you need a stronger antagonist. Mm-hmm. It's if I am going to fight a 5-year-old toddler, right, as a 40-year-old man, is it really a fight? Am I really going to beat that 5-year-old toddler? Like, is it going to be a competition? No. Give that 5-year-old toddler super speed, super strength, and super intelligence. It's not just the average 5-year-old. Now there's an actual challenge here. You got to do something above and beyond. In order for it to matter for your protagonist to win, for that to be important, to even care, the bad guy has to be up here. Like your good guys here, your bad guys here. They have to overcome something to build themselves up. They have to grow through the story. That's important. You have to have your protagonist advance through something.
And your antagonist should have an arc.
To have an arc is yes, but I'm talking about specifically a progression. Let's say that there is a weapon that your antagonist has, and whatever you've got is not going to cut it. So the journey that your protagonist is to find the stronger weapon. So that's what brings the protagonist to that level. And maybe at the very end, the antagonist takes it and takes out your protagonist. And who knows? Whatever it is. But it's understanding how that typically works gives you a way to go beyond it or subvert it. Again, as we've talked about before, learn all the rules so that you can break them.
And this is a rule breaker, right?
This is indeed a rule breaker because, Once Upon a Time versus Happily Ever After. This is not Happily Ever After.
No, it is not.
And it still works.
Okay, so that was subvert hope. And then number 4, show the mechanism. So let the audience understand how it was that the villain won. My example would be the Wicker Man. He had every clue, and the end was still inevitable.
Yeah. Almost a better example than that, surprisingly. And only because, and there's a particular reason, the Saw films.
Oh, sure.
Because there's used, and this is a great example of this is used in modern day horror. It's the Saw films. Think of the Saw films. Jigsaw is somehow successful at the end, and there's usually a final tape that explains how he was able to get past it. I always forget which Saw film it was. It's the one that has the 5 people going through a series of rooms. Let's see, that's 1, 2, maybe Saw 5.
Might have been Saw 5.
Saw 5, Saw 6, one of the two. Like there's like a reporter and like a drug dealer and some other people. Someone that works for the city. And it comes down to 2 people at the end, and they have to let blood to fill a container or whether it's a final trap. And they realize that they've gone through all of these things. Why they are all chosen was because they all were part of a bad scheme. They were all played their part in a bad scheme of a cover-up. But they also went against each other, and they weren't supposed to. Like it says earlier in that movie that they're supposed to go against their natural instinct, which is to be individual, and work together. Jigsaw loves to tell you exactly how to win his game. And when you don't, his final tape is like, this is why you lost. This is how I won. I won because I knew good and well you weren't going to go against your instincts, despite the fact I told you to. Even though the tubes that you were supposed to hide in had enough space for at least 2 people, you all felt like you had to kill each other. And this is why this last trap will hurt you more than it should. He explains to you why. And this piece, this thing we're talking about, this note, is exactly why that happens. Why does John Kramer leave a final note? Because he's showing you the mechanism of how he won. He's showing you why he was victorious, how he knew he was going to be victorious in the end, how he knew he was going to be better than you, and for you to know it. That's how you know it. So, MJF.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean have your bad guy do the monologue.
Though it does happen. We talked about it earlier today. We talked about bad guy monologues. You don't have to do bad guy monologues, but just make it obvious.
Make it obvious.
You can find the plans. You can see the chart. Oh, he knew. How did he know? This was set up from the beginning, the whole time. That kind of thing.
So
there are different ways to do it, is what we're saying.
Yeah. Okay, so see segment 3, number 4. Avoiding pitfalls. Don't do it just to be edgy. It must serve the story.
Because we know, and we'll know. The reader will know. The viewer will know. And there's a movie we talked about where it seemed as if someone did this just to be edgy. And if you follow the number 1 horror movie rule, or even horror book rule, and that's read it twice, watch it twice. Because knowing the ending, you should be able to see signs of that at the beginning and through the piece.
All the clues,
they should all line up.
All the foreshadowing. The second time through, you start to see the breadcrumb trail that leads to the mystery's end.
Right. When you see that scene where Helen is no longer there or whatever, I'm just making up names. Helen is no longer there. She walked away, or she is, or one of my favorites is Scream. We talked about Scream 6 earlier today, but in Scream, when you go back and look, you'll notice that there's a scene at the fountain at the school, and Ghostface is known for having black boots. 2 people in that friend group are wearing black boots. Very beginning of the movie. And it's Billy Loomis and Stu Macher. The shoes match the entire movie, and it's just right there. It's right there. There's even the bathroom scene where we look at the boots, and it's just right there. So it's little things like that should be evident as you watch your film, or as you read the book and go back and read it again. Something that was said by a character, or a little description about the place that you made innocuous the first time you read it, you ignored it, and you realized that was the key. And this should all be lined up. High Tension is the movie where it seemed like someone was just trying to be edgy, because when you go back and rewatch the movie, none of it makes sense. And I'll save all those details for a whole nother day, because that's an episode by itself.
That's an episode by itself.
Be cautious if we ever do a movie review of High Tension. You're going to hear my voice a lot more than you already do.
French horror episode. Anyway, watch out for nihilism fatigue. A story that means nothing loses power.
To happen just because is no reason.
Nihilism fatigue. There has to be levity. Like,
You don't want to just overrun them with dread, horror, 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 dread, horror. End.
yeah, you can't do that.
Because then they're just like, this is too much, and they just cut off. And it's ineffective. It's ineffective. Nothing's better than when you have like a small comedic moment or a nice, just a nice light success maybe halfway through. Something that takes the audience out of the moment for just a minute. Keep them in the story. Take them out of the moment. Take them out of the dreadful moment, and then bam, surprise them with it.
Yep.
Out of nowhere. And that's how you get a good jump scare. That's how you get a good shock turn. That's how you surprise them with the bad guy winning.
Dun dun dun. Lastly, don't flatten characters for the sake of a twist ending. I felt like in Scream 6, this is a perfect example of making Officer Bailey the big bad, as it were, because he told everything that is sealing his fate to die.
Yeah.
He's not going to make it because he made that speech.
Now, the only time that I've seen that's pretty common.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, in Saw 10, the last one, yeah, in Saw 10, the bad guy, the like actual villain that is going against John Kramer, she survives. Spoiler: she survives, and she did the whole big standoff thing. Even John Kramer, as he was retaliating, did the big standoff thing about how he got out. But in the end, when the credits start to roll, you know that she's still there. She's still alive. She somehow managed to make it through because she's that tough of a bad guy. That's how. Now, did she defeat Kramer? No. He got out. But she also survived. So at the very least, she's stronger than you thought she was. And she's at the very least as strong as John Kramer. So I'm hoping that they carry that on into Saw 11. But that is kind of what we're talking about. It's something that simple. If you're going to be this grandiose villain, and it's like every old superhero TV show, sometimes at the end the bad guy feels so bloody confident that they're going to share their whole thing, their whole plot, their whole future plan, and then it all backfires because now the superhero knows about it and can stop them. So yeah, don't tell them or lie to them. Here's what someone never does: they never just lie. Why can't the villain just lie to the hero? You know what I mean? It's like, oh, they're going to go to the factory now, and then you go to the factory, and
that was an interesting sound.
I should be concerned. No one screamed, so I'm not.
No one screamed. Okay,
but and then go to the factory, and then like nothing's there, no one's there, nothing's happening, and then you see an explosion on the opposite end of town because they've lied to you. The bad guy wins that way.
Yep.
The bad guy wins that way. So like I said, there's these little things that like you have the tropes, you have the things that typically happen. Learn the rules, follow the typical line of story. And then something just as simple as during the bad guy monologue, the bad guy lies. Something that simple can shift the whole story, and the bad guy can win. And then you're like, oh, it shocks
but
you.
You have to, but you only know that it's a lie because the truth comes to light.
Yeah. So you have to actually go to the factory, like the bad guy says. And when you go there, you realize that nothing's happening. And you're like, oh no, I've been had. And by the time I get to where they're actually going, it's too late.
It's too late. Yeah.
But that in itself would be a moment of levity that you would have. It's you're relevant, you're hanging out in the space of the good guy's victory, only to find out that you've been had. You got.
You got. Okay, so I have some tips for the last segment. What does the villain's win say? I think it says that again, as a writer, I get catharsis, right? I get a real representation as to how justice works in the real world.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I expect out of my media as well. I don't get it, but it's what I expect. What do you think, Moon? What does the villain's win say?
It's the power of the villain versus in some cases, the humanity of your protagonist. Usually our protagonist is close to human as they relate to us. I say close to human because you look at someone like Superman, who obviously isn't a horror villain, but he's a horror protagonist. However, he's still the embodiment of the word hero. And we want Superman to win, right? So we make him human as much as possible. And that's a common thing to do with your protagonist. And I think to have the bad guy win just tells us how tough this bad guy is. Yep. It shows the severity of the moment. It shows we're not just dealing with a dude who's mean. We're dealing with a villain. We're dealing with a true antagonist. And that means the actions of said antagonist actually matters. We need to be really paying attention to the things that happen. This works really good in part twos. Like if you're going to create like a part two of something, if you're writing a serial, this is how you think of any show you've been watching. Think about how your part one ends. Your protagonist is probably under the thumb of your antagonist, and then it cuts. How do you feel? You can't wait to the next episode. You can't wait until the next thing happens. You are anxiously waiting for the second movie. They got you like this, hanging from the string. That's what you want, because doing that throughout the book is what makes them turn the page. It's what keeps them invested in your series, in your franchise. So that's the importance of this. And the bad guy winning, it says there's value here. There's a story to continue to tell.
So there could be sequels or requels or whatever.
The continuation of the franchise.
Yeah. So my second tip would involve starting with the theme, not the twist. That concept of coming up with your climax and then making the breadcrumb trail going backwards. That's one thing. But unless you are so again, we were talking about watching the movie twice, right? And in the second you see all the breadcrumbs,
You see
But
how the structure is built, yeah.
yeah, so through structure, we bring in the audience because there are certain expectations regarding structure,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
In horror books too,
Oh yeah.
right? Yeah, start from the rest of the story, the theme. In that, if your theme is the women not having autonomy over their bodies, right? Then make it revolve around the theme.
Like
And
think of worst case scenario and make sure there's a story that supports worst case scenario.
yeah.
Don't just be like, ooh, I want it to where this happens. Because sometimes that's fine. If you can manage
Sometimes
to
that's fine.
if you
Put
can
it on
manage,
a post-it note, set
yeah,
it aside.
put it on that post-it note, put it on the end of your wall, because that's where you want to end up. And then just make sure that you're setting up an actual story that supports it. There have been many a time where you have a really cool idea and you go to write about it, and all you've had was a really cool idea for like a scene. And maybe that's great for a short, but if you're trying to build a full-length novel, not a short story, a full-length film, not just a short, you can't just have a really cool idea for a really cool scene. There has to be a story that supports it. And it's easier to build from the beginning to the end or from the middle out. It's difficult to viably, not impossible, but it's more difficult to start at the end and work your way out.
Yeah.
So
I know some fantasy writers that do that.
Yeah.
That figure out their climax or figure out their denouement and then figure out what needs to happen in order to, how many breadcrumbs do they need to leave.
And working the story backwards is not just as easy as working it forward, because backwards doesn't always work. There's a French film called Irreversible that goes backwards. Talked about it. You don't need to watch it. Just trust me, it's not. Don't. I don't know if they did a kill count for it. If they did, watch the kill count for it. You don't have to watch the movie. Just watch the kill count.
Okay.
Shout out James A. Janice. Who doesn't know us, but it's cool.
Who doesn't know us, but that's okay.
Tell him we said hi anyway.
Tell him we say hi.
Tag us in the comments and tell them Sako and the Moon said hi.
Yeah.
You have to
endings should haunt, not just shock. So, yes, in Terrifier, the villain keeps going from movie to movie, just keeps amping it up and amping it up and amping it up. And that is a shock movie.
It is.
And that is... I mean, if that is your goal, have at it.
That's the movie for gore horrors. I'm not sure if that's the official term for it, but it is now.
Gore horrors.
If you're just loving the gore and that's what you need to get your horror rocks off, then
so be it.
Yeah, you're a gore horror, and that's fine. There's no judgment here. We don't king shame here, but it's not just for shock, and that's, you don't want to leave them necessarily grossed out, but this is the part where I want to tell that story. So the movie I was referring to is The Strangers, the one from 2008, not Pray at Night and not Chapter 1, but the original movie The Strangers leaves you with such haunting dread, because most of the beginning part of the movie, he's just toying with them. You know, they break into that, they find their way into the house, and the cell phone that's on the charger gets thrown into the fireplace, or something, little things like the fire alarm, the smoke detector that was left on the floor is now sitting perfectly neat on a chair in the middle of the floor. someone picked it up
Moved it
and
up.
put it there.
Yeah.
Something that subtle, that simple. Terrorizing things just by knocking on the door. And that movie, The Bad Guy Wins. It's from 2008. I can spoil it. It's been more than 15 years now. Okay.
Yeah.
And they're reviving the franchise, which mixed thoughts. But at the end, they eventually capture the couple. There's 3 villains. And when confronted, this is what you saw in the previews, when confronted, they ask, why are you doing this to us? What did we do to you? They're like, nothing. We're doing this because you were home. And all they did wrong was answer the door. They answered the door, acknowledged that they were home. It's good enough. That was the part that was terrifying, is that they did nothing wrong. They were just minding their own bloody business, and they still found themselves the victim. Normally, it's like, I leave people alone. I keep my nose clean. I don't get involved in crazy things. I should be fine. I'll be okay because I don't do X, Y, Z. Didn't matter in The Strangers. All you did was acknowledge that you were at home, and you just happened to be home, and you were suddenly, that was justification enough to be a villain. And I went with my girlfriend at the time. We saw the movie in theaters, and she left that theater, and the first thing she said was that she wanted to go buy a gun. She wanted to buy a gun for home protection immediately following that movie. That movie filled her with so much real life terror. Because one of the best parts about that movie, and if we ever review it, you'll hear me rave on it, is that there are no supernatural special effects. There's nothing. Everything is so simple, so practical. It didn't need to be anything over the top, but it was so honest. It was so real. It felt so plausible that the dread wasn't fantasy dread. It wasn't the fear of a non-existent monster. It was the fear of a person, and people exist. The people are everywhere.
People are everywhere.
And so everyone is a random threat. They're just people. They're not super strong people. They're not like alien bonded people. They're just people who had a dark sense of self and just decided to just do this really evil thing. And there's nothing more terrifying than the idea that some random stranger might just want to suddenly hurt you just because. And it made someone want to real life protect themselves. And that is the powerful impact you can have by letting the bad guy win. I love that movie, but for years, I refused to watch that movie at home. I didn't want to watch that. Loved the movie, raved about it, always recommended it. I said, watch that movie at somebody else's house. You don't want to watch that movie at your own house, because you'll start looking at your own house like, ooh, do I have enough escape routes? I only have one door here. This window doesn't work really well. I'll instantly need to fix that window. Instantly build a new door. You'll instantly feel like your house is a trap. Don't watch it at home. Even I have a hard time watching it at home, even now. And that's why I love that movie so much.
That tracks. I get that. My last tip would be try writing both. Try writing both the when the hero wins at the end, and then try writing like the bad guy wins at the end. And I'm making a mess of myself.
Happens.
So one where the hero wins, one where the villain does. So see which is more honest to your story.
Which one's the most impactful for you?
And for me, it's always the weird one. Like, I usually write 3 endings, one, bad guy winning, a hero winning, and just like rando,
Something weird happens.
nobody wins or
I love
everybody
nobody
wins, or I do a lot of endings. And I go a couple of scenes after the climax.
Yes.
So closing thoughts.
Well, I was going to say something on that last point you made because
Oh, okay, go for it.
some people may or may not remember The Descent, great movie, the cave diving movie, has 2 endings. It's a British horror film. It has the UK ending and it has the US ending. The US ending, the good guy wins. The good guy gets out of the cave and moves on to safety and survives the night. In the UK ending, they don't. Everything that we see up to the part in the car where the ghost shows up in the car, the US ending stops there. The UK ending continues, and Sarah wakes up in the cave, and she is being surrounded by the crawlers, and she has no escape, and she's just delusionally envisioning her child celebrating a birthday before she is killed. And it's one ending. The UK ending is like the ending, but the US ending was like the softened ending for the US audiences, which is why we say know your audience. Because again, American horror, British horror, French horror, we talk about them like that. Asian horror, they are segmented because there's expectations on all of them. And a lot of times in American horror, we have that once upon a time, happily ever after type of mindset with storytelling. So to know their audience, they write that second ending for us. A lot of movies actually have 2 endings like that. People like the special edition DVDs or whatever. But when they made the Descent 2, it was based on the US ending. So know what you want to do with your piece. What's going to happen with this piece when you're done, when you put it out? Is there a part 2? Is it part of a series? Is there a whole world you're trying to continue to build afterwards? If your bad guy wins, your bad guy is around for other parts of your series, even if it doesn't involve this character. Making a strong bad guy victorious allows that bad guy to loom over your entire series. It gives you a series to write. But write both endings so you can know which one best suits your entire series or best is used for promoting your piece and things of that nature. That's just an example of where it was done, where they had 2 endings available to people.
Well put.
Now closing thoughts.
So the takeaways. We want to make the fear linger. Make the loss personal. Tie it to the theme. Subvert hope. And show the mechanism. Don't be edgy. Don't just be edgy. It must serve the story. Don't have just dread and horror, dread and horror. Have some levity. And yep. So we explained why this trope works, how to use it and how not to use it, and some tips to go along with it.
Sure enough.
So on Monday, we are reviewing a movie that relates to this, and we decided on Funny Games. Because I haven't seen it, and
it's one of the like ultimate bad guy wins kind of movies. It's all I'll say is this: finding it streaming for free is difficult. there may or may not be a link on a channel like YouTube that is YouTube, but not YouTube, it is YouTube, where you can find the movie officially, unofficially available. Get a chance to watch it if you can, buy it if you can, watch the movie. The one from 2007, the one from 1997 is technically a foreign film, so there might be
it's a different
subtext. Movie. It's the same movie. It's the same movie, but it's just like the foreign movie, so it's not in English. It's harder to follow. I would want you to, if you speak English, I'd rather you get it in English, just so that you can focus on everything that happens around. And I'll just say this, after watching that movie, I will never loan eggs to my neighbor ever again.
Okay.
We'll see why in the explanation of the movie, but watch the movie and you'll automatically know.
I will learn why that's a thing. Okay, and then on Wednesday, not Friday, we are interviewing Lauren Nettles, who is a gothic horror author. So we're going to talk about gothic horror with Lauren Nettles on Wednesday at 11 a.m. And then Friday, I will be in the throes of Darbukistan and doing belly dancing things all weekend. So I will be out of town and out of reception.
And I'll be around somewhere.
Yeah.
I'll be doing something.
Somewhere. Yeah. Blue Sky.
Blue skies.
Find him on Blue Sky. And then, so I mostly hang out on Facebook and Blue Sky, but if you Google Sako or Sako to me or Cass Voight, you'll find all my stuff. You'll find my author stuff, my dance stuff, my soon enough my music stuff, my art, and which is I'll say illustration and photography. You should check all of that stuff out.
And it's easy to find me by just like looking at my name, Dwan L. Hearn. You'll find the website, DwanLHearn.com. If you see that, you're in the right spot. And it's the best place to get a hold of me. There's a contact page, so you can find my socials. I'm usually DL Hearn Writes everywhere. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, primarily active on Blue Sky.
Thanks for sticking it out to the end, guys. We did run a little bit over. If you like this podcast, please rate us or like us or follow or subscribe or whatever. There are buttons involved.
All do the things. Wherever the button is. If it's over here, do it over there. If it's over there, do it over there. If it's down here, do the thing. There's a like button there. There's a subscribe button there. And there's like a bell looking thing. You should hit the bell looking thing. You should do that.
On YouTube.
Well, we're live on YouTube. So yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Do all the things. Whatever the thing is, if there's a heart, hit the heart. If there's a thumb, hit the thumb. If there's a follow, hit the follow.
Rating system,
hit all the
like
things.
on iTunes or whatever, you can 5-star review, please. And yeah,
I'll take a 4. But
we're doing this. We're doing this live. I mean, cut us some slack. And you can contact us at Sako and the Moon at podcast at gmail.com. And we will see you guys next week.
Later.